Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Management One webinar of 2021. Last year, we produced about two dozen sessions like these, geared towards helping the retail community navigate the changing landscape in 2020 due to COVID-19. We were just amazed by the amount of adaptability that retailers were able to display. And some of the sessions that we put together were really geared towards merchandise intelligence and a lot of the retail data that we serve up to our clients at Management One. But we also wanted to reach out to our network of contacts and really speak about things that are relevant to the retail community, but not particularly in the Management One wheelhouse. And I think one of the major ones, one of the reasons that we're starting with this in 2021 is e-commerce. So we wanted to invite Josh Orr of Streamline Retail to give us a little bit of the strategies and tactics for dealing with e-commerce in the new normal. Before we get into that, though, I did want to run through a couple of house rules. We want you to be able to listen to this webinar as best you can. So the GoToWebinar platform offers either computer or phone audio. So please choose whichever one works best for you. The most important thing is this is an open discussion. So there is a questions panel in GoToWebinar. We want to hear your questions, and we're going to save some time at the end to answer those in the live session as well. And for those of you that need to jump off early, that's completely fine. We are going to send out a recording after this session, so you can watch this with your team, just in case you miss anything. So for those of you that aren't familiar, who is Management One? Thank you for joining us, by the way. Our purpose is to provide financial security for our people, our clients, and our affiliates. And we do that by delivering merchandise intelligence and education for independent retailers like you. We deliver this through a set of core values: generous heart, courage, curiosity, adaptability, commitment, and collaboration. And we've also made a specific commitment to increase racial and ethnic diversity in our company, on our network, and contribute to improving racial and social justice in America. So I wanted to turn it over to Mr. Josh Orr. Josh, thanks for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. I didn't realize this was webinar number 1 of 2021. That's an honor.
You are kicking it off for us.
That's awesome. Well, hey, everyone, I'm really glad to be here. Today, I want to talk about re-commerce in the new normal. And just to be clear, you might notice there's some verbiage there that's important. I'm not saying e-commerce is the new normal. I want to talk about what is this new normal and where does e-commerce fit in, and how can those of you, particularly brick and mortar retailers, succeed online in this new norm. So before we do that, brief introduction. My name is Josh Orr. I live in Houston, Texas, but my team's all over the United States. I started a company called Streamline Retail. We help brick and mortar retailers that are wanting to either launch their first online store or who've been online but haven't really gained traction yet. We help through the strategy and design and all those pieces. I also have a podcast that it's the Retail Initiative podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, I think. And lastly, and this is the, I'm sorry?
I enjoy them.
Good. Well, and the shameless plug, and I have no shame in it. If you are on Instagram, I'd love if you followed me at Retail Josh. I post a ton there about retail, things that hopefully can inspire you to be better. I post tips, all of that stuff, and there's occasional cute pictures of my kid. So a couple things, just so you know. Did I say kids? I have 3, so I sometimes forget the last one, but that's neither here nor there. So what I would love from you today is it's easy to sit back and not, participate or do anything. Be in the comments right now. I'd love to know like where you're coming from, if you're online or not. If you are online, drop your site. Love to see that stuff. Share what you have going on, and as questions come up, throw those questions in the question area, and we will be happy to address them. So let's talk about where we're going from here. Last year, things changed. I don't think I need to tell you that. I think we're all a little sick of talking about e-commerce. You probably are sick of the word pivot. If we never said that word again, I bet a lot of you would be pretty happy. And I was trying to think through, like, what do I compare 2020 to? Not the dumpster fire analogies; those are all funny. But I mean for retailers, what do we compare it to? And the best comparison that I have, and where the strategy of retail is, it reminds me of when I was, like 11, I think. And I remember I was outside of my school and I'm playing with my dudes. We're playing basketball or whatever, and everything I wore was about my dudes. Like I wore a Michael Jordan jersey and basketball shorts and all this stuff at school to impress my friends. And one day after school, Katie comes outside, and I saw Katie. I had known her for a long time, but something was different about this time that I saw her. And in that moment, literally everything changed. My whole world was different. My focus was different. I quit wearing basketball jerseys and I started trying to wear things that I thought Katie might like. It was a moment where I couldn't go back to the way things were before. Things had changed, but I couldn't go back. And I don't know if you remember that moment where you got your first romantic feelings and you knew that nothing was going to go back. Well, it's the same thing for retail in 2020. It doesn't mean that everything has changed. The way we do retail, not all of it is out the window. We're not hitting reset and starting over, but we're not going back to the way things were before. It looks different forever. From now on, retail is going to be different. And so what happened last year? If we had to really think through, first, customer habits shifted. People that would not have purchased online in 2019 were forced to purchase online in 2020. People realized like there really was not an advantage. They couldn't go try something on in a store, just like they couldn't try something on online. And so why not just order it online? People that never would have purchased started to. And that changed customer habits. People that maybe had a fear of it now are shopping online. So customer habits shifted. Retailers were forced to pivot and you moved online to social selling. So before I move on, something that I want to make clear here. First off, if you're here, you're probably still in retail. You deserve a pat on the back. You deserve a vacation. Yeah, you deserve that. And I want to make clear that like I appreciate what you did. Some of you stayed up all night and you launched your first online store. Some of you figured out all the technology behind social selling and you started doing that quickly and you did what needed to be done to support your business, and kudos. But I also know that some of you tried to wait it out a little bit. You thought this might go away. You didn't launch online. You didn't social sell. And now you're like, oh, I wish I had done more. I wish I had actually tried to launch online or tried to do this. And I want to encourage you, we don't want to go into 2021 on a list of what we should have done. The most important thing is what you do next. So if you're feeling this weight of what I didn't do before, let that go. What matters most is what you do next. If you launch that online store and you did social selling, you know what? Like that success, it can help. It can give some momentum going into this year, but it doesn't guarantee you success going into this year. And if you aren't online, if you aren't doing the things that are needed in your business, let today be that fresh start. It's kind of like when you're out of shape and you're overweight or whatever, and you could be bummed that you weren't at the gym 5 days ago, and you could be bummed you weren't at the gym 4 days ago, and we can be sad about it and cry or whatever, or you can pick it up and we can go to the gym.
So January is a fresh start.
Yeah. So if that's you, I just want to say, let that weight go and realize that we get a chance to move forward from here. And I think if we talk about like what it's going to be like to be successful, where do we focus our attention? It's difficult to know like, okay, where can I actually put effort and know that it's going to produce a return? So my goal in today is to give you some very tangible things that you can do, whether you are online already and you want to implement some new things, or if you aren't online and you're trying to get ideas and learn, my hope would be that you can leave today with some practical things. At the end, I'm going to invite you to join me if you'd like to talk through your strategies and next steps. I'll give you information on how you can do that, and we'll offer you some free resources that you can get that will help kind of move you a little bit closer. So does that sound good? Cool. Let's keep going. So first off, I want to talk about the new retail. If retail has changed and we're not going back to the way things were, then I'm going to call it the new retail. It's a new style of retail. And if you've ever seen me talk, you've seen me share this before because I think it's that important. If we think about our store, and I'm assuming most of you are brick and mortar stores, you probably think about your storefront. If I ask you about your store, if I say like, hey, Nico, can you tell me about Nico's boutique? His mind immediately is going to go to a storefront. And that storefront has been the center of everything. His store had a website, his store had social channels, his store had events and all these other things. And it all came back to the storefront. Well, this is what has changed that we aren't going back to, is instead of your store having all these things and people, it all comes back to the storefront, you have a brand. And if you think about a brand, think of it like a person. And a person has a voice, they have a personality, they have values, they have all these things that represent who they are, and your brand is the same thing. Now, that brand has a store experience, that brand has an online experience, that brand has a social selling experience. It has an experience that no matter where people engage it should be the same brand. And I think where the mistake that a lot of retailers have made is they have said, it's all about my store, and all I care about is my store experience. But their online experience did not reflect the experience that you would want someone to have if they walked in your store. So what we want to do is start to say, okay, who is my brand? And if someone experiences it, what do they feel? What do they feel when they think about my store, when they think about my brand? And how can I make sure that no matter where they come in contact with us, that they feel that feeling? Does that make sense? All right, so now, how does that play itself out? Because I'm sure a lot of you are like, okay, I get it. I get this brand thing, but that's one of those like lofty ideas that I don't quite know how to translate it. So let's talk through what might it look like to begin to translate your store experience and what's so unique about your store to an online experience. And so first, there's something you need to know. And it is to address the intention over the action. And here's what I mean by that. If I walked up and I go into your storefront and you have something beautifully merchandised and you welcome me in a certain way, why is that there? We don't want to address just the merchandising and just the greeting. We want to say, why did we greet them that way? Why did we merchandise that way? We did it so they would feel something. We did it so they would feel a connection with our store. And so instead of saying, okay, how do we take that merchandising and merchandise online the same way, we want to say, okay, well, the goal is that they feel something and that they feel a connection with our store. Now let's do something that produces that same result. So we want to, instead of looking at your store experience as like a tit for tat comparison of this action is this action, look at the intentions behind your actions, and then let's take that online. Now, I know a lot of you are like, okay, these lofty ideas, I get it. Now let's actually get into some tactics of how that plays itself out. So let's start with the first impression. If I walk up and I'm outside your store, think about like, what is the goal of the whole thing? How your window displays. When I walk in, again, it's that feeling. We want to do something very similar online. So this is that same brand. It's all about the first impression. And so what we want to do is focus on how you make them feel. Again, it's about a feeling. And I'm going to get to this more later, but online, it is so important that you have a clear understanding of exactly who you're serving. Because online, people want to belong. They want to go somewhere and be like, oh my gosh, like this place was made for me. In store, you can kind of compensate not having that perfected with really good customer service. You can provide great customer service and compensate for the fact that they may not be your perfect customer. Well, online, we don't get to do that in the same way. So understanding who that person is and giving them a feeling. Now, how does that break itself? Like, how do we actually do that? Well, there's an area called above the fold. So if you're at Starbucks, but back when you could go to Starbucks, and think when you're checking out, and there was a display right next to the checkout, and it was a stack of New York Times, and that New York Times was folded in half, and there is all this stuff on top. There's text, there's images, all these things. And the goal of that, weirdly, is not at all the goal is not to give the news or anything. The goal is to entice you to pick up the newspaper and read the rest of it. That's why they don't give whole articles on the front page. The goal is to get you to pick it up and continue browsing through the newspaper. That's their goal. Well, your website's the same thing. If you visit your website, you go to, in this situation, sophieshoes.com, and you don't scroll. You don't scroll at all. That is that above the fold area. And people have in the back of their brains, when they're browsing online, they're on their phone, they're on their computer, there's just this little voice back there that's always saying, is this for me? Is this for me? Is this for me? And that above the fold area is what answers that question. So first, focus on how you make them feel when they visit your site. If your perfect customer visits, they should be able to quickly come to the conclusion, this place was made for people like me. Does that make sense? Now, the ways that plays, yeah, exactly. And how we do that is through a mixture of, first, lifestyle photography. This one I realize can be difficult, but the comparison that I have is a lot of people like to put a picture of their storefront up. And it's a picture of our store, and it's welcome to Nico's Boutique. Well, what's the problem there? I think I even said this last time I was in a webinar with you guys. But like, if I go to Disney World and I take all these pictures and I come back and I share my pictures with you, do you feel what I felt when I was at Disney? Probably not. You don't get the feeling that I had. Or like if my kids show pictures of their friends, they don't feel what they felt in the magic of visiting Disney World. But if I show them the movie Frozen, or Soul, which is phenomenal if you haven't seen it yet, yes, or you show them Soul, that actually does convey some of that feeling. The lifestyle was able to better convey the feeling than just a picture of the actual event. So if you think like the purpose of a lot of your merchandising and store experience is to invite into a lifestyle, well, we now just want to actually show images of that lifestyle. Next, engaging copy. Having like welcome to Sophie's or welcome to Sophie's Shoes, that doesn't really say anything. That doesn't truly invite them in, when for her, like, her perfect customer is a little edgy, and so just girl, quit playing. And it is, addressing, a lot of us are in clearance season right now, and she is doing some incredible sales, and so this is speaking to her perfect customer, and it's engaging for them. And lastly, big to do here is a clear call to action. And what this means is, do they know exactly what to do? There's a big button, shop now. The user knows all these items are on sale. What do? I click shop now. It's going to take me to all the stuff that's on sale. So this is that big above the fold. This is a huge and important area on your site. And it's honestly one of the first things that's either going to make it or break it.
So I would also say, Josh, for people that are returning to the website, it's always good to change this regularly, like you would your merchandising when you're walking into the store.
Yeah, think of it as often as you change out like that big front table or display, you probably need to change out your hero image. Which, by the way, we actually have some templates for you. So if you go to streamlineretail.com/M1, the link's on the bottom corner of this slide, you can get some free resources, including some templates for those hero images. One thing that's big here is don't overthink this. I think a lot of people get so stuck on the word professional, like I need a professional looking whatever, worry more about being on brand. Does it represent who you are? And let the professional stuff go, honestly. And if your brand is super professional, then sure, but the template should be able to take care of that. So next, customer service. The actual experience of like, how do we actually help our customers? Once they're in our store, what do we do? Well, again, we want to look at the intention behind our action more than our actions. We can't walk up to someone on our website and be like, what brings you in? And even if you could, like if you put up a pop-up, what brings you in today? Most people are going to exit off because they don't want to answer that question. So it's the intention over the action. So I think we first need to address, just like your storefront, you have different types of people that come in. You don't help everyone the same. Some people come in, and I would say they are on a product-based search, meaning they are looking for something very specific. Like in my situation, they want a Johnny O long sleeve polo in dark gray. And that's what they're after, is that specific polo in that specific color. And the way that we do that is through search and navigation, which I'm going to get to some examples of, and some cool ways that we can do that. Then next, and this is the most important one, is what I'll call solution-based traffic. This is someone who, they don't know that they're looking for this shirt, but they know that they're looking for a shirt. They know that they have a date they're wanting to look good for, and they're on your site to solve the problem, which is looking good on their date. Or they finally got to the gym, like we talked about, and they lost some weight, and their solution that they're looking for is, I need new clothes for my weight loss, which is awesome. And lastly is browsing. And to be honest, this is that person that when they say they're just looking, they really are. And this is boredom. This is just the person who's browsing your website. And the most important thing here is around your brand experience. Just like having a really cool store and something that people want to walk around in, it's the same thing. We want to have a site that's cool, that people want to be on, and realizing that some people aren't there just to find something specific. They're there literally just to browse and see what's out there. So let's get into some examples of how we address each of those. So the first one, that product-based person, is search. So this one is, whose website is this? I think this is Red Dress Boutique, which they're pretty big. So I searched for the word tops, and you'll see some cool things here. First off, they suggested things that I might search for. If I'm looking for it, like I love, the next thing is tops on sale. It guides them through the person who knows what they're looking for, but they don't know how to word what they're looking for. This helps them tremendously. Next is we give them some filters. And this was all before I clicked enter, which is so cool. We give them filters to help them get even closer to what they're wanting. And lastly, we actually give them some options. Now, it doesn't have to be to this level. I realize like I'm showing you the Mercedes of search. But this is where when you use almost any e-commerce platform and a decent theme, you should be able to provide good enough search results that actually guide them. The important thing is that they can actually get to what they're wanting to find. And having a useful search is going to be incredibly important. It's a huge conversion killer when search does not work. So that's product-based. It's pretty simple. It's around really good search. And of course, navigation, which is what I'm about to go over. Now, navigation, that top bar, first principle, before we get into the cool version, keep it simple. Top level categories and then simple subcategories. We don't want to have 20 options and confuse our customers. We want to have our basic highest level categories and then a mixture of like some curated collections, like new arrivals or January sale or Valentine's Day collection, whatever that could be. But you can even start to reimagine this and think outside of the box. Like if my wife's looking for a dress and she walks into your store, what does your salesperson say? Like, hey, what brings you in today? I'm looking for a dress. Do they say, oh, here's a dress? No, they say, what is the dress for? Like, what do you want to do? Is this a wedding? Are you going on a date? Like, what are you wanting? Or they might want to know, even if they knew that it was for that, then they want to know, like, okay, well, What length are you comfortable with? Are you looking for something shorter, something longer? What does this look like for you? Well, in your navigation, if you're using what's called a mega menu, these big ones on the top, you can set this up to where you have it. Of course, you have the categories, but then you can break it down by the unique needs, the unique problem that they're looking to solve. They're looking to you for a solution, and this is how you can deliver it, just like you do in your store. So this is where these can start to marry each other. Anyone, I hope, put in the comments if like some of this stuff you're like, oh my gosh, like my site needs this or whatever. Like I'd love to hear from you that this is actually like the stuff that is helpful. But even if you can't go this level, just reviewing your navigation and thinking through, like, think through if I had a specific need, how easy is it for me to find it? Or if I know I'm looking for a shirt, how easy is it for me to navigate through your different kinds of tops? Or what's the style? If you're in home decor, how easy is it for me to find something for my tabletop in a certain style? Start to think through that and then build out your navigation based on the customer experience. You don't have to be so limited to how your point of sale does it. Instead, you can really start to think through how people might experience your store. Now, next is filters. Just like I talked about in search, I might land in denim, and I know I'm looking for a pair of jeans, but I don't just want to keep browsing through jeans. I want to see what sizes are available. I want to know the fit. I want to know the color. Well, filters is how we do that. This can be done, sometimes it's with themes, sometimes it's with apps, but this can be based on style type. So if like you're in home decor, someone might filter based on the style of the home that they're decorating. If again in denim, it might be based on boot cut. I miss boot cut jeans for the record. Boot cut, slim fit, regular cut, all those things we might want to filter by. And then of course the normal things like prices and colors or brands and so on. So filters are a huge way to elevate your site. And then lastly, that browsing group, the person who is on your site and they're just there to browse. They aren't looking for anything. And what I love to do here is focus on curated collections. And in this situation, we have like our favorites and bump friendly, date night out. This is Vici, which is a pretty prominent online store. A vacation collection, whatever that could be. Think of that in your storefront when you have tables and you might have a whole outfit put together and then you have the components of that outfit neatly laid out on a table. That is a collection that you threw together when you merchandised. Well, we want to do the same thing online. This is for that person who they're not going to look through tops because they don't know they want a top, but they are going to see the wording bump friendly, be like, oh my gosh, I'm expecting a kid. I want to look at bump friendly clothes, and then they'll actually start to engage you. Whereas that woman maybe wasn't going to search through dresses and assume what would have been bump friendly for her. Does that make sense? All right, lastly is traffic. We can do all the right things, but it doesn't do any good if we don't get any eyeballs. Now, I think that what's most important to understand with traffic is principles. It's not necessarily about where you click or how you do what you do. It's really understanding what is it that gets people to visit our site, and then using those tools that we just talked about to increase conversions. So the first thing, and this is so important, is you have to understand who it is that you're serving, understanding your perfect customer. So the first question to ask is, who do you serve in your store? A lot of people think that their online customer is like the younger version of their in-store. No, they're the same. It's one person. You serve one customer, and that is who we want to target. And I think the problem and why people can struggle with driving more traffic to their site is they think through the list of what they should be doing and not thinking, who is my customer and what are they doing online already? Because the reality is, like, we don't create traffic. We are not bringing people online. They are already online. They're already doing things, and we want to move them from here to here. We want to get them from what they're doing already. They're browsing Facebook, they're browsing Instagram, and we want to get them on our website. And so if that's the case, we want to understand exactly who we're serving and where are they already. It's easy to have a list a mile long of the things you could be doing. when that list could be a lot easier if you think through, my perfect customer is Barbara, and she loves being on Facebook because that's where her pictures of her grandchildren are, and her friends, and she can talk with them. And it's great for Barbara. But some of you, you're serving Ruthie, and she's mid-30s mom, and she loves Instagram. And that's where you need to focus, is on Instagram. The truth is that none of this is a one-size-fits-all strategy. None of the web stuff I talked about, and none of this is it's not all a one-size-fits-all. It's about how you serve your customers, how you reach your customers, and then translating that. So first, know who you serve. Second, show up and be consistent. I know this sounds obvious, but consistently post. Don't worry about being professional. Worry more about if your customer and your perfect customer and your brand were friends, how would they follow each other on Instagram? What would their posts look like if they were posting towards one another? It doesn't have to be this perfect thing. It can be imperfect. Lastly, find what works. Find what works for you and then stick with it. It may not all resonate, but I think a lot of us feel this constant need to move on to what's next, and we don't have to. Find what works. Now, side note, if you just heard me say find what's comfortable, that's not what I said. Find what works. Find what is beginning to produce results, what's actually driving traffic to your website, and stick with that before moving on to the next bee's knees of social media or whatever. You don't need to be worrying about what company is on Clubhouse if you're starting to gain momentum on Instagram. All right, so let's recap the most important things that I want you to leave with, that I think are going to produce some results. First, see your store as a brand that people engage in different places. Your online presence does not need to take second seat to your store presence, to your store experience. Even if that one's your favorite and that's the one we want to focus on, you can still work to provide a really good online experience and social media experience for people to engage your brand. Lastly, or second, focus on the types of visitors that you have coming to their store and provide solutions just like you do in your store around, helping them find the exact thing they're looking for, or helping them find the solution to the problem that they came to you for. You can focus on that. That's where to put your energy. It doesn't have to be on all the bells and whistles or any of that. It can be simple things that are going to produce results. And lastly, understand who it is that you serve, where are they online already, and get in front of them and show up consistently. So as we wrap up, we want to take questions. Here's what I do know is this world can be confusing as you're wanting to go online. Maybe you haven't launched online, you're curious what it might look like, or maybe you've gone online and it hasn't gained the traction that you'd hope. And you want to talk through, like, okay, what are next steps? Like, what would it look like to actually grow my online sales? I'd love to invite you to a free strategy session where we'll talk through where you are, where you're wanting to go. If it's something that we can help with, of course, like, we'll share what that looks like, but I'd love to point you in some good directions on what it would look like for you to really grow your online sales. So you can apply. These are on an application basis. They can fill up fast, but you can book this at streamlineretail.com/schedule. Again, that's streamlineretail.com/schedule. If you want those free resources, so there's a perfect customer worksheet, some hero templates, and some email automation templates. You can get those at streamlineretail.com/m1. If you book a call, we'll automatically just send you those resources, so you don't need to do both. And again, follow me on Instagram at RetailJosh if this is the kind of stuff that interests you. So I would love to take questions.
One thing I'd like to say too, Josh, and thank you for that as well. When people are really looking at that retail experience online, something that I always used to do when I was running a site in my previous job is just role play, pretend, go through your own site, and you'll often find areas where you're like, why don't I have this? I should have this on my site. Or looking at how somebody would experience the site. It's a really good idea to just role play and see, are you offering things that people might want to have?
For sure.
And the good thing, I always tie things back to data because Management One is a data company. People in e-commerce, they have kind of an advantage. You know, if somebody's walking into your brick and mortar store and something doesn't really work and they walk out, it's hard to know what it was that might have turned them off. But
Hmm.
with e-com, with Google Analytics and a lot of the new apps that you have that you can tie into your store, you have hard data of which pages are working, which calls to action are working, you know, what images do they like, and it's a lot easier for you to make those changes based on hard data. So I think when you're talking to folks and you want to see who that perfect customer is, look at your data. Go to Google Analytics and really measure, where is the traffic coming from? Do you have 80% of your traffic coming from Facebook and maybe only 10% from Instagram? You might want to focus on posting on Facebook a lot more. So it's
Yeah.
really going to be about focusing on the hard data that you can see. The other thing that I think people forget too, especially in the pandemic, I think retailers were a little bit spoiled because back in, I believe it was 2016, mobile traffic eclipsed desktop traffic. But in the pandemic, we saw this shift where a lot of people were stuck at home and people went back to their desktops. So you had these big, beautiful displays where you could have all of the navigational features and functions that you want. That above the fold spot that you were talking about got a lot bigger. So you had more of a platform. I think in 2021, as people start to venture out more, we're going to shrink back down to the iPads and the iPhones of the world. And that above the fold spot is going to be a lot more mobile. And people are
Yeah.
going to have to really grab the attention in that tiny screen space.
Yeah.
I would
I
also
totally
agree with
agree.
you on the pop-up strategy too. I think people have become, there's pop-up fatigue, I would call it.
Yeah. I
And
still
it's,
believe in pop-ups, for the
I
record.
still believe in pop-ups, absolutely. But as a
Everyone
customer
hates them, but they
service
work.
feature, it's tough. And I get a lot of people that ask me about chatbots, and I would really steer them away unless they have a streamlined system that can deliver exactly what the customer wants. You know, if you have a fully integrated chatbot system that can serve up products and really steer them down into that funnel, great. But if it's a very basic chatbot pop-up, like you said before, it's not a one size fits all thing, and people, they know a robot when they're seeing one.
Yeah. I mean, my approach to any of that stuff is it can work for some people, not others, but really focus on what's going to produce results. And is the chatbot, any of that kind of stuff, like it doesn't matter what it is, any of those advanced features that you read some article about, um, a lot of times, like, yeah, that could be good. Like once you've perfected a really good customer experience and you're getting traffic and you're updating your site on a regular basis and you have that system in place, then yeah, then let's move to that next level thing. But until then, let's focus on the core principles of what's going to actually grow my online sales.
Absolutely. Let's see, let me get to a couple of the questions here that we have. A lot of folks, well, here, I guess the main question, this one came up a couple of times, is, and it could go back to the data that I was talking about, but Michelle was asking, how do I know who my perfect customer is?
Um, this is a hybrid. This is a hard question to answer, but it's one that I think is important. So first, I think you need to ask, who do you want to serve? Like who do you actually want your perfect customer to be? You know, we helped someone last year who was in a small Texas town and really did not like her customer. She didn't enjoy serving them. They were discount customers. And you know why they were discount customers? Because she always had discounts, and she was scared to stop being a sales store because she was like, "But my customers all shop the sales section." And I was like, "Look, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep training that customer? And like at some point, you have to decide, who do you want to serve? Who do you actually want coming in your store, and who do you want shopping with you online? Now, next, who do you want to serve combined with who can support your business? And I think those two need to happen like at the same time. We need to really ask both. Now, when I say a perfect customer, a lot of times I'll be like a 35-year-old mom. Understand that like even things like age, which is not all about age, but let's say age, it isn't necessarily about a number, more as it is an interest and lifestyle and life stage. So if your target customer is a 35-year-old mom, there is likely a 23-year-old who has similar taste, similar interest, similar everything, and there's going to be a 50-year-old who has similar tastes and similar. So you still get a broad group, but when you're buying, when you're marketing, when you're designing, you're doing everything, you're thinking of that 35-year-old mom. So who do you want to serve and who can support your business? And if you want some exercises, there's actually in the free resources is a worksheet that we take you through to help you get to that. And that's honestly, like when we do our work with retailers, that's the first thing we start with. Is your brand voice, but your perfect customer, who it is that you serve, and then how can we start to translate that online? But I think it's a great question, and that's an important question to be asking is like, how do I figure this out? Who do you want it to be? Who can support it? And if you need further help, like think through who are your 3 favorite customers? Who do you like that comes in? Who are your least favorite customers? And be specific. All these things I think demand very specific answers. Don't just say like, I love people that spend a lot of money and I hate people that, or I don't like people who spend not a lot of money. No, like we need to be, I really love when Barbara comes in because she's nice with our staff. She listens to our advice and she takes risk and she'll actually try on what we suggest, and she'll normally leave with something that she maybe wouldn't have picked out on her own. Great, then it shows your role in that person's life. So that's the kind of stuff that I focus on. That help?
One thing I would suggest too is use the customer base that you already have. You have a bank of emails of people that have already purchased from you. Send them a survey. See, when you were looking at the solution-based items in a drop-down navigation, throw them some ideas and make it fun. Make it a fun experience for them. What would you like to see on our site? And see what the most popular one is. Maybe they'll come up with something that you never even thought of, and you can think, oh, maybe I should have had that on my site. If everybody is saying that I need this particular assortment, then add that in.
Hmm.
I think your existing customers can be some of the strongest advocates for your brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me get to, I see I think we already anticipated this one, Josh. There's a lot of questions of folks asking about platform. And I think we spoke about this before it went live. It really, a lot of these tools are universal. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. They can be applied to any platform.
Yeah.
As long as it's an e-commerce platform,
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing, guys, and it's hard. The truth is, like, you want to be on an actual e-commerce platform, meaning, and if you want the tell for it, go to their website. Does it talk about e-commerce as the big thing, or selling online, or whatever verbiage alludes to e-commerce? If it doesn't, if it refers to something else, if it refers to being a business website builder, it's probably not an e-commerce platform. It's a business website builder that sells things. And those are different things. So an e-commerce platform is your biggest. Of course, we all have our favorites, but being on an actual e-commerce platform is probably the best place to start.
I would absolutely agree with that. Let's see, we have one question here. Could you please speak to opportunities that help drive Instagram and Facebook users directly to purchase from your site? And also speak to how SMS texting can drive online traffic. SMS is actually a very good way, I would think. I'll leave that one to you though, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are definitely very tactical. As far as like how to use Instagram or Facebook, again, I'm going to come back to, is that where your perfect customer is? Let's assume that that's where it is. So first, I mean, if you're using an e-commerce platform, you should be able to make your post shoppable, meaning you get that little dot that they can click on and then end up going to your website. The next thing, if you're not able to do that, is you can use a thing like link in profile, which is what comes from the company's Later, which is great. Like that's what I use to schedule my post on Instagram. But they also have when they click on the link, it then brings up a picture of your feed, and then they can click on each post, and then that takes them to the link that you're wanting them to get to. So you can either make your post shoppable, or you can go there. And once you get 10,000 followers on Instagram, you can do the swipe up feature and push that straight to your website. That's obviously the most ideal. And then if you're doing paid ads, then you can actually do links to your site. Now, the one thing I'll warn you towards, and this just kind of get to another level, but hopefully it's some value that makes your investment of your time worth it. The biggest problem that I see is when people point traffic from one place to another and it doesn't bring about the result that we were hoping for. Let's just use the example of a paid ad. We have a paid ad for my Dunder Mifflin coffee cup. And I'm trying to sell this Dunder Mifflin coffee cup. And this is what's in my ad, is me drinking from this and just being like, don't we all miss Michael Scott? He'd love 2020 or something like that. And then we click and we go to my Josh's gift shop, and it's my homepage. And on the front thing is shop our Home Alone collection. It's my favorite movie, for the record. Shop our Home Alone collection. And nothing references Dunder Mifflin coffee cup. That's a problem. We want there to be a consistency between the link that we actually pointed them to. So creating a collection, an office gifts collection, or pointing them directly to the product. But a lot of times that collection can be cool because then you can have the coffee cup, you can have the Dwight bobblehead, or whatever you're going to do there, but make that actually worth it. So that's a big one. That's not necessarily like a how to get them there, but I focus more on, okay, once they're there, then what? As far as SMS is concerned, first off, a lot of you are hearing this and you're thinking, I'm going to warn against this. Don't chase the shiny marketing objects. It's very easy to do that. If you have not done like the basic things, if you aren't on an email marketing platform, that's step number one. Is it the most effective? No, but that list is your gold. Like that list is the most, and it's going to house your phone numbers as well. That list is your gold. So start there. MailChimp, Klaviyo, I don't care. Start there. If you aren't there, get there. Now, SMS, text. First off, I love it. It's great. Huge open rates. You can actually put images in it. And if you think, like people talk about getting apps and whatnot made for their stores, the only thing you really get with an app is that push notification. It's like, hey, shop our new arrivals. They just launched. Well, an SMS text basically gives you that. It gives you the ability to do it and send them essentially a push notification. The open rates are insane. The click-through rates are really good. Now, the thing that I'll warn you against is there's a lot of laws around it. So make sure that you are following, follow procedure. Make sure you know what your state says about it, and make sure you know if you're in Canada or United States, whatever, make sure you know the laws around how to do that. What confirmation do you need to actually send a text? And realize that you can't send text that often, once a week at best. So be very aware of that. If you abuse it, you'll get blacklisted quickly and that will hurt you. So I love SMS. Start with the basics. Then I think that's a great thing to do. There's a lot of really good systems out there. Klaviyo has it, Postscript has it. There's some other smaller ones that are phenomenal. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, especially with the email lists. I mean, that's like a person standing in your brick and mortar shop with a clicker, seeing how many people are coming in and just getting your name, phone number, and email at every single person walking in and out of the door. And that is the gold that you can use to reach out to customers and find new ones. If you are getting into advertising, creating lookalike audiences with those lists that you already have is another great way of growing your traffic.
Yeah.
Diana's actually saying she has a good problem. She's getting the traffic, but it's not turning into sales. So what would you recommend to the retailers that don't have a traffic problem, but they're having an issue turning it into conversion?
First off, Diana, is that right?
Diana.
Yeah, Diana, I really do think you should book a strategy session. Like that's kind of what we do, is help with that problem. So I would focus most on the user experience. Think through, what people experience when they land on your site. Does it represent your brand? Like if I walk in and I'm your perfect customer, if I walk in your store, what do I feel? What questions are you going to ask me to help me find what I'm looking for? And then are you going to add on, like, what are we going to do to maximize my purchase? Well, are you translating any of that to an online experience? So I'd start there, looking at your things above the fold on your site, looking at your photography. Photography is huge. Look at your product descriptions, the information that you're giving about your items. And then lastly, like, look at the experience at large. How does your navigation guide people through your products, and so on. But honestly, Diana, I think hopefully book a call, because I think that's what we can probably help dive into a little bit on that call.
Absolutely. Becky is asking, what analytics on the site should retailers be focusing on if they're really trying to find that perfect customer?
If they're trying to find the perfect customer, is that the question, or is it what
Well,
analytics?
it was a vague question. What analytics should they be focusing on?
Got it. So first off, be careful using the data given to you by your e-commerce platform. And what I mean by that, like the data that Shopify shoots out may be different than Google Analytics. I would trust Google Analytics more than anything. But it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I would look at conversion rate. I would look at conversion rate's easiest. I would look at your traffic numbers. I would look at your bounce rates. So a bounce rate is like if someone visits your website, what percentage of people immediately click back? Because that means that so many people are landing on your site and they're quickly coming to the conclusion, this isn't for me. And if our bounce rate is too high, we may be getting a lot of traffic, but we're not getting the right traffic. And if we're getting the right traffic, but we're still getting a high bounce rate, then our experience is awful. So honestly, the easiest one though is your conversion rate, which is how many people are visiting your site against how many sales you're making. That number, it ranges significantly, but generally the standard is 2%, which if you think about that, just think about that number for a second. 100 people visit your site, only 2 are going to buy. 2. That means that we have to make sure that we're getting those people coming back, that we are focused on that marketing stuff that we talk, like email marketing, all of that. That's what gets those people to come back, because we need to maximize that. But that's the numbers I would look at above anything else.
Yeah, and for bounce rate, I typically like to keep pages below 50%. That's kind of where, for me personally, that's my benchmark. I think the main thing that you want to look at is how is that bounce rate transitioning over time? Are you leaning up or down? If you're trending upward, then you need to start making some changes. If you're trending down, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
The other channel I would look at too is acquisition. You know, where is the traffic coming from? What medium is that traffic coming from?
Yeah, so one thing I will say about analytics, especially if you're just getting started, is numbers don't say everything. What I mean by that is if we all judged how we're going to do online by how our online sales were last April, we're all going to crush it. But then I think we saw a lot of us dropped off when people could start getting out again in whatever state they were in. Well, if you launch your online store and most of your traffic is just coming from your Instagram, you're not getting SEO traffic, you're not getting ads or any of that. You're just getting people from your customer list. Your conversion rate should be really high. Your bounce rate should be really low. Your numbers should look really good because of where it's coming from. Like if I send a customer satisfaction survey to only my mom, what is the result going to be? Well, if things start to look bad, but you start to look, you're like, oh my gosh, but our SEO is so much better. We've been running paid ads. Of course your bounce rate is worse. Of course your conversion rate is worse. Give yourself some room to see those adjustments, and don't freak out when they tank or whatever briefly as you're moving into new mediums and your traffic is increasing outside of that group that's very like primed to buy from you.
Yep. So this is a question on bandwidth, and I'm not talking about web speed. The personal bandwidth that a retailer has. Brian, one of our retail experts, says, I have clients that opened an online site during the shutdown. Awesome, congratulations. But now their brick and mortar's open and they just don't have the time to spend on both. So what is the most efficient way they can maintain if they don't have the time to really dive deeply into their e-com?
I don't have a one-size-fits-all answer here. I think you really need to decide what you want out of your store. I know you're an expert and you're really kind of asking on behalf of your clients, but for those of you that are retailers, what do you want out of your online site? I would put answers that I get a lot in really 3 buckets. There is the bucket of, I just need to make it past COVID. In 3 years, I don't even want to mention the word e-commerce. Then you have this middle group, which is like, I really want to serve my local customer. I want to help people be able to buy online, pick up in store, and that's it. I want them to see what's available before they come to the store. And then you have this last group that's like, I think this is the future of retail. I think this is what my brand needs to do, and I think it could be its own location. Well, your answer on like, okay, where should capacity go, needs to be dictated by those. If you're thinking this is going to be another location, then we need to start thinking through, okay, well, what roles are needed to succeed online? And it's just getting my sales floor team to be implementing this stuff, the best use of this location. Like, no, if you opened a second store, you're going to hire a sales team. You're going to do all these things to grow that. A strong e-commerce channel is going to be the same. And that's I don't want to take up too much time, but like I talk a lot about 3 roles that you need. You need a visionary who's deciding the direction of the brand. You need a creative who's bringing that vision to life visually. And then you need a doer. This is the tactical person who is actually, like, they're adding products online, they're publishing collections, they're taking the things that creative did and actually publishing them. Well, the reality is, like, I don't know anyone that's good at all 3. No one. You were probably good at one, average at the second, and bad at the third. Well, if that's the case, what do we need to fill in? And I think a lot of retailers, because they have viewed e-commerce as this backseat thing, they've been hesitant to get help. And so decide what you want out of your site. If you're that middle group or that lower group, then maybe it's a matter of just creating a system around, okay, how do we keep our site updated on a regular basis and make it a role? Like, hey, every time we do a major re-merchandising of the store, if we move something around, we also need to update our website. That's how often we should be doing it. It's going to depend store to store, but I think it should really start with, what do we want out of our website?
Yeah, and for the folks in that group that say, I never want to talk about e-commerce again, that's fine too. Change your calls to action on your site then. Tell them to come to your store, book an appointment, book an online appointment with a service person at the store. I think that's also, if you want your e-com channel to drive traffic to brick and mortar, that's fine. But yeah, to Josh's point, if it's going to be an actual point of sale for you, then you should treat it like a second location.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm going over, just in the interest of time, I'm going over a lot of the questions that ask very specific questions. I would definitely recommend reaching out to Josh if you're asking about specific applications on a specific platform. Let's see. So here's one. It said in the beginning you mentioned social selling. What exactly did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I didn't dive into it. It more was like, hey, I know a lot of you started doing this. Social selling is when people get on Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives and they sell things. So, like, hey everyone, hi Susie, here's my Dunder Mifflin cup, and and it's a great way. It was a very low hanging fruit way for people to immediately start selling online. You go live, you entertain people, you show what you got, you show your new stuff, you show what you're putting on sale, and then people would comment in the comments, like, if you're using an app like Comment Sold or something, they'll comment like, sold extra large, or they will say like, hey, I want that. You'll send an invoice and then you ship it to them. So that's social selling. Comment Sold's a platform that does that, but that's not my wheelhouse. Is like true, like pure e-commerce.
As it should be. The final
I
question
love
here that
social
I'll do.
selling. Just so we're
What's that?
clear. I said I love social selling though. I think it's great.
There are some folks that have built an entire business on it.
Mm-hmm.
The final question here is from Zach, and he said, a question for retailers that may not have a really deep inventory or size offering this late in the season. Do you have any tips on the e-com site on how to kind of fluff up the product offering when it's been picked over during the holiday season?
Yeah, remove options from your navigation and be okay with products showing up in more than one place. So what I mean by that is like adding more curated collections. So Zach's faves and January sale, Valentine's gifts, and so on. And products might show up in multiple places. that's okay, because not everyone's viewing your site page for page. They're looking through a few categories, they're looking through a few collections, but that's what I would do. Be okay removing options. In fact, you should be removing options all the time. If you have one thing that has, in the winter, it might be appropriate to have sweaters, coats, jackets, but as we move into spring, you might just want to make it outerwear and include all of those things in one. So, be okay changing your navigation. It doesn't have to perfectly mirror your point of sale. It's more about the customer experience. So be okay changing that stuff. I think it's the easiest way, personally.
I would agree with that too. And I remember having a conversation with a retailer. They were talking about not wanting to change navigation because it was going to negatively affect them with SEO. And my response to that is always, always, always put the experience over any kind of technical gain that you think you're going to get on SEO. The user experience is the absolute most important thing.
Yeah, and actually Google's algorithm favors experience. And that's something that I don't think you're going to beat. And so when a customer has a good experience on your site, you're helping your SEO. And if you're nervous about it going away, if that page still exists, it still is in your SEO. So if it's not in your navigation, that's okay. As long as it's in your sitemap, then you're fine.
Yeah. Well, for the folks with the very specific technical questions that asked in here, I would absolutely urge you to email Josh specifically and get his recommendations on some of the specific apps or strategies that he has in place. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is, as I mentioned, the first webinar in a series that we're going to be producing in 2021. Last year, we produced about 24 of these sessions with a variety of topics, and all of those are available on our YouTube channel for free to the retail community. And I wanted to thank Josh as well. Thank you for joining us today and providing a little bit of insight for us.
Yeah, so good to be here.
Thanks again.